Good evening to one and all present here. I welcome you all to our next session, which is based on talent and rewards insight. And for this session, we have with us Miss Shanti Naresh, ma'am, who is partner and India business leader responsible for Mercer's career business in India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Ma'am also co leads the talent community of interest for Mercer's AMEA region. And during her 14 years of Mercer, ma'am has led numerous complex multi country HR transformation initiatives. We also have with us Ms. Preeti Chandrasekhar ma'am, who is India business leader for retirement, investment, and health business for Mercer in India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. She also has a rich experience in long term cost and risk management of defined benefit schemes, alternate arrangements, design and pricing of voluntary retirement schemes, and annuity products. And now I would request Shanti ma'am to proceed further with this session.
Thank you very much, Kripa, and thanks to NHRD for giving us this opportunity to talk about, I think, what we are very, very excited, the new ways of working and the talent and rewards aspect of new ways of working. Kripa, may I request you to bring on the slides, please? Yeah. Thank you so much, and let's go to the first slide after this. So, if you can move on. Recently I heard about this company called BioNtic. It's a company in Germany which, along with Pfizer, was the first one to develop the COVID vaccine. And BioNTech has taken on a purpose for itself, which is beyond just coming up with vaccine production in Europe. They're actually trying to see how can they accelerate the availability of affordable vaccines in a country like Africa. And to do this, they've realized that actually the time taken to export vaccines from the factory in any other part of the country to Africa is so long that by the time the vaccines reach Africa and the destination that they need to reach, their shelf life is too short. So what they've come up with is they've realized that they have to modularize factories, and they actually have to take modular factories, set them up on the ground in Africa, and produce vaccines on the ground there. What a fascinating transformation. What a fascinating and positive transformation that we're seeing amidst all the news about disruption. It also means that traditional skill sets that the life sciences industry used to acquire are not going to be enough anymore to sustain such a disruptive model of production. So while we've been hearing about disruption and transformation, largely they've had a negative connotation. We think that the role of the HR officer, the CPO, is really leading edge now, coming up with innovative business models, looking at new roles, new strategies for making all of this possible. This new way of working possible, I think, provides a huge opportunity. Another thing I read just this morning is IKEA India appointing a woman CEO for the first time. And this woman CEO is going to wear two hats, the CEO and the CSO, the Chief Sustainability Officer, a new role that's come up in the midst of all of this transformation. And it couldn't have come at a more timely juncture given what's happening in Europe and what that might mean for IKEA if things worsen. So there's a huge, slew of opportunities waiting for us. We can move on to the next slide. We think that this whole transformation and disruption is actually being driven by three factors. The first factor is work. Work is evolving. We've just spoken about new types of work, new roles coming up, new skill sets that are required. In the BioNTech example, the organization is now looking for commissioning and erection engineers, a role that they never thought of in the life sciences industry. The second thing they're looking to do is a lot of the work has to be done on the ground in Germany, but the actual facility will sit in Africa. So they're looking at how networked the employee pool can be to run this factory. So the networked delivery model, whether it's through using a combination of expats and locals, whether it's through using contract versus regular workforces, all of these are coming up, and all coming up because the speed of change is immense and the need to adapt is so important for survival. The second big factor driving these changes is that employee expectations have now evolved. The whole of the last 2 years have just accelerated the pace at which employees want to balance work and life. Quality of life is a demand that has emerged from multiple quarters of employees, and it takes multiple shapes. Every employee has a different expectation. The rise of the individual's value proposition is very, very important for the chief people officer to address. And finally, to drive all of these, the HR function itself needs to transform. How else will we know what each individual employee requires if we are not digitally connected, if we are not connected to employees at all times, at all points in their journey with the organization, at all moments that matter in the life of the employee with the organization. I think so. All three factors: work, employee, and HR. All of these are at the leading edge of transformation, and that is setting the stage for us to, if we go to the next stage, think about what is top of mind challenge for the organization. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. And all of this alongside a buoyant economy, huge growth prospects, is fueling the war for talent more than ever before. And in response, because each employee's needs need to be catered to, whether that's around wellness, whether that's around growth, whether that's around health, all of these big topics that are coming up. Every organization, 98% of organizations, so I'm saying that every organization is looking at what is the value proposition that we need to recraft. How can we make sure that the 62% of organizations that are finding it challenging to recruit, and I think this data is probably a month old, it must be 80-85% of companies now that are struggling to find people, and find people across all levels, including mid-career professionals, that are looking at how do we need to reinvent ourselves, what is it that we can do differently to attract our employees. Amidst this, how are the employees perceiving the environment and this change? If we go to the next slide, we go to the next slide, please. I think we are seeing that we can categorize employees broadly into two groups. If you look at all the transformation that is happening in the back end today, the need for the knowledge worker has increased significantly. But in a country like India, there's a huge blue collar workforce as well, whose needs need to be addressed. And nothing has become more disparate than these two groups of employees, both wanting their needs to be fulfilled, both experiencing what we call as the burnt out or the fed up syndrome, depending on which part of the demographic profile one belongs to. And knowledge worker is saying, I want meaningful work. I want work life balance. I want the organization to care for my wellness. And alongside, I want to make sure that I'm building my career for the future. So their needs are somewhat different. And on the Maslow's hierarchy, they may fit at a different level than on the other side of the spectrum, where we have the blue collar worker, largely manufacturing workers, largely healthcare workers, who are actually at the other end of the pyramid. They're saying, give me equitable living wages, let me have some rest. They are completely overworked, and they're dealing with problems like financial wellness, basic financial wellness, which is also affecting mental health. What we want to conclude, therefore, is that all of this, the background to the transformation, the kind of employee profiles we have, all of these make it extremely relevant for the HR function to think innovatively, come up with what we are calling as the new shape of work. So, if we move to the next slide, please. When we say the new shape of work, we are actually talking about four different things. What are the skills required in this new shape of work, and do we actually understand them? What new reward strategies are required to address the needs of different types of employees? Alongside it, there is a huge cry for balance in life. What form and shape will flexibility take? And how do we make sure that while we are making all of these changes rapidly, these changes are satisfying a broad set of stakeholders, and they're making the organization sustainable? So we're going to talk to these four trends today, which are broadly in the talent and rewards areas. And if we move on to the first slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about new rewards that we are seeing emerging. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So, new reward strategies that are coming up. Uh, Please move on to the next slide. And we are speaking about three of these reward strategies today, one in a little bit more detail than the others. The first of them is what we've called as agile rewards. When the shape of work is so fluid, when things are in a constant state of flux, how can rewards be constant? Seems like a very logical question. The whole concept of agile rewards that we want to talk about is built upon the IT industry, where we know that different skills are required to come together to deliver, in a quick manner on a client's demands and expectations. So agile teams, the concept of agile teams coming together, collaborating, disbanding after a delivery is done, means that team-based rewards are going to define our future, at least part of our future. To reward for coming together with a unique set of skills, bonding together for a period of time, delivering effectively. I think that's what the reward strategy is going to revolve around. And we are calling that as agile rewards. The next one is around personalized rewards, and I'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a minute. But this one revolves around the concept of the fact that each employee's needs are quite unique. So how can we personalize these rewards? The last one is inclusivity, innovative benefits. We just saw on the two slides ago how there are two different pools of people. One pool feeling that they're not even getting living wages, that they're not getting the rightful benefits, and that they are pulling more weight, more number of hours to produce, perhaps something that's extremely crucial for all of us. So how do we make that pool inclusive? We also know that a lot of inclusive, talent pools are coming in. Can we make, the contingent pool that we are relying upon today so much part of our benefits program? Can we extend that leave benefit or that paternity benefit to somebody, who we don't define as family today, who could also actually be a family or a partner? I think all of these forms and shapes are defining what inclusive and innovative benefits would look like. A lot of them are in the areas of leave. A lot of them are in the areas of opportunity. A lot of them are in the areas of learning. How can we spread learning to beyond just who we think of as the full time employees in the organization? Just focusing a little bit more on personalized rewards. If we go to the next slide, many organizations have been talking about the concept of flexibility in benefits and flexible benefits. But one organization is actively experimenting with this concept. Unilever is giving employees a choice around the benefits that they can make as they can choose as part of their compensation package. So beyond their fixed, cash compensation, Unilever is giving employees a choice. What is it based on? It's based on the philosophy that when a customer of Unilever's products can go to a shop and choose from a variety of products what fits their needs, why shouldn't their employees do the same? So really bringing the consumer grade experience to life is what Unilever is doing through the personalized rewards initiative that they've introduced. And what does this really mean? It means that uh, I'm recognizing every individual may have different needs and may have different needs at different points in time in their life. So no longer is individualized rewards similar to what we said. Okay, let's look at data by age groups. People of between 20 and 30 will have similar needs. 20, 30 and 40 will have similar needs. No, I think everybody in these groups, within the same group, needs to be treated as somebody with unique needs. And the whole notion of personalized rewards is, let's listen, let's find out what does the employee want. Let's do it through using digital means, and let's make it happen in an agile manner. Is all of this going to fit within the budget? That's a challenge. Is it all going to be seen as equitable? Yeah, that's another challenge for the organization to figure out. But recognizing that every individual is unique and catering to their need is what the whole area of personalized rewards is evolving towards. Let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about the next pillar.
Thanks, Shanti, and good evening to all of you. Thanks to NHRD for this opportunity to discuss a very pertinent topic. Shanti talked about why employers need to look at delivering more value through personalized rewards and the benefits package that she was talking about. But there's also a new challenge that they face. They are looking at ways of offering benefits and programs that engage employees wherever they are, which gets me to the next point of flexibility of work anywhere. So the new shape of work is not just about remote working. Now there's a broader range of aspects that you need to consider, from how and where to work to the new ways in which we work and how workplaces and workforces are organized. We shall touch upon two types of flexibilities in the next few slides. If we move on to the next slide, please. Perhaps the most important dimension in flexibility is the model of remote working. And it is important and pertinent for us to recognize that there are many models that one can look at. But if we just look at the continuum of models, you have on the left side an office driven culture where companies expect employees to return to the office once the vaccine is widely available and if there are no government restrictions. On the right side of the spectrum, you are having a remote first culture as other companies operate virtual first. They look at alternate ways, convert the offices to studios, etc., focused on community and collaboration. Then there are two models which actually sit in between. The first one is a distributed model where employees are working in different locations, which could be remote offices, which could be headquarters, which could be home offices, etc. The focus is on collaborating again without any geographical boundaries or restrictions. Then, the most popular model that most of us have actually come across is a hybrid model where employees can work remotely up to, let's say, 50% of the time with an option of a full time remote work with manager approval. Where what it ensures is it's a hybrid model, but there's a continued strong tie to the office and also depends upon the exigencies and the requirements of the work that you look at. So, that is the first kind of flexibility we look at. If we move on to the next slide, please. Now, the future of work extends beyond remote working. Flexibility does not mean just where, but it also means who works, when the person works, and how the person works. We are talking about various models and perhaps looking at talent as a service. We've come across software as a service, we've come across data as a service. Now we're looking at talent as a service. And there are new phrases that we have come across like dynamic talent allocation, akin to dynamic asset allocation, where you adjust the mix of asset classes, etc., to suit the market conditions. Same way, you're talking about a dynamic talent allocation, where you try to match the opportunities and the requirements of the organization to the talent available. If we move on to the next slide, please.
I think the slides are not aligned. Preeti, I think we are on the skills slides, so we have to
Okay.
go back a couple of
Okay, that's
slides.
fine. That's fine. So the ultimately what we are looking at, if you go back to the previous slide, is that we are looking at talent as a service. That was my first point, and the second one was looking at a dynamic talent allocation, where you're able to map the organization's needs to the availability of the talent, and hence become more agile, more nimble as you move along. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think our slides were a little misaligned. I think
Okay,
we have
that's
the
okay.
right slide on screen now,
Yeah.
Preeti. Yeah. Uh, Anything else that you want to share
No, no,
on this,
it's over
Preeti?
to you. Over to you now, Shanti. Yes, we're done.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I think the slide was not aligned properly. But I think you got the idea of flexibility and not limiting it to just hybrid work, but really looking at flexibility in more than one way. That takes us on to the third pillar of our new shape of work, which we are calling as skills. So if we go to the next slide, please, we are seeing skills as the new currency. And I think there are many reasons why this matters to organizations. The first thing is, as is in the examples that I shared early on, the kind of skill sets that organizations are increasingly requiring is changing at very rapid pace. The same organization, BioNTech, in order to make the factory effective and the vaccines readily available, actually has to pre-wire the quality assurance function or the tests before the factory is even assembled. So imagine that what that would mean. It actually means that you will be working with some fairly sophisticated digital technology to ensure that a part of the QA function is digitized, and that QA tests that were formerly done by other people are now done by machines. Implications for that is that the QA team itself will need a new set of skills, because when the factory is set up and the vaccine is produced on the ground in Africa, the kind of things that need to be done to ensure that the vaccine is effective, it is ready, will probably be different. So that itself is, a huge reason why companies need to be more agile, need to look at the skills agenda and see, how to reshape what they're hiring for, what they need to build in the organization. It is, of course, compounded by the fact that technology is making many, many skills obsolete, and the rate of change of skills themselves has also increased a lot. While from an organization's perspective and from a business perspective, the business case for skills is very clear. From the employee's perspective, skilling has become a huge, value proposition for employees. They want to remain employable. They want to take control of career development, and they want to know what skills will keep them employable and keep them growing in the organization. If we move on to the next slide, while the reason why we need to focus on skills as the new currency is clear, where we are as organizations is that we're still lagging behind. Only about 42% of companies that we looked at in our research in the APAC region seem to have defined a skills taxonomy in the organization. And some functions seem to be doing this more than others. And what we've seen is the maximum focus on skills and skills definition, skills taxonomy seems to be in the technology industry. Manufacturing function is actually lagging behind in terms of its whole skills architecture. If we look at further, are organizations even aware of what skills are in demand and how much should we pay, how should we acquire these skill sets? I think there's a lot of work to be done still in the area of skills. In response to this, I think we're working on something quite exciting, which is looking at a skills taxonomy, looking at artificial intelligence to say which skills are in demand, what is the price point of this skill, and how should you therefore plan your pay program based on the premium and discounts the different skills attract. We are very excited and looking forward to bring that to market very, very soon. Let's move on to our last pillar. Yeah.
So we are all talking about sustainability, and ESG is a new buzzword for us. And how does one unravel the enigma surrounding ESG? For me, it is very simple. E, environment, is how do we treat the planet. S, social, how do we treat our employees. And G, governance, how do we run the organization. How does one address the social and human dimension of sustainability? How do we do that? By treating people responsibly, taking care of their physical and mental well being, and recognizing really that all are different. Now, what is driving this focus on sustainability? We have seen in the last couple of years that beyond the global pandemic and the economic distress, there were multiple movements. You had Black Lives Matter, Me Too, to name a couple of them. Then there are also external factors like regulations, which mean that company needs to become more accountable for equity and equality, not just externally, but also internally. So we really need to embed sustainability in purpose and culture. We need to differentiate as responsible employers and make sustainability as a part of the value proposition, adjust the people and HR strategy suitably, walk and talk DE&I strategy, have a holistic well-being offering serving the needs of our diverse workforce. If we move on to the next slide, please. It is really clear now that an organization's purpose needs to go beyond the profit and align with better environmental and social goals. And to become intrinsically sustainable, it is important to engage with employees to decide on the key ESG priorities. So, ESG is no more just a boardroom conversation. Everything that we do as an organization has to resonate well with the ESG values that the organization stands for, including the employees who are very key stakeholders in this whole process. So, in a nutshell, if you move on to the next slide, please. What are the key takeaways for us? We will talk of three key dimensions of value, flexibility, and sustainability. When you talk of reinventing for value, what have we seen during the pandemic? We have seen the value shift at both at the society and the individual level. Reinvent for value requires a rethink of the benefits that inspire and how the EVP needs to evolve for a more diverse, inclusive work model. Reinvent for flexibility. We have seen COVID 19 has really tested our ability to flex and how and where we work, to rapidly adjust capacity and accelerate digital transformation. The new shape of work is clearly flexible and skill based, and we've touched upon that very briefly previously. The third dimension is reinvent for sustainability. This is about how companies and investors behave, and it is in sharp focus as they reset priorities and take collective responsibility for the future of multiple stakeholders. With this, we come to the end of our session of our presentation. We are happy to take a few questions. We have about a few minutes, 4 minutes or so. Any questions for us?
I'm just skimming through the chat. I think there are a
Some.
lot of comments. Yeah. And I think one of the questions was around flexible benefits and whether the election of benefits is an annual process. Yes, it can be designed to be an annual process. A lot of it is dependent on the cost of administering the whole technology around flexible benefits and choosing it. Currently, we use technology to allow employees to elect what allowances they want as part of their fixed compensation. So in some ways, it is an extension of the same technology.
And also, just to add to that, Shanti, it will also be governed by what shape and form the new labor codes give us, right? In terms of what
That
gets
is true.
notified. So that's going to be an
Absolutely. Yes.
external factor that will determine the structure.
Yeah.
Ma'am, you can also see there are questions in the Q&A section.
Yes.
So
I think I can see a couple coming up. How to do workforce mixing with varied pay and benefits. It's an evolving space. I don't think, I mean, the first thing is even without mixing your workforce is already not homogeneous, right? So you are mixing pay and benefits. A lot of it is to do with having a fairly clear and broad rewards strategy defined at the upfront. What's your philosophy around managing various talent pools? What's the mix of pay versus benefits you want to extend? Who do you want to extend those benefits to? And what should be the role of performance in all of these? I think a number of different questions can get addressed if you start with articulating a rewards philosophy for the organization. Um, there's one more, Preeti. I
Which
think this is around managing budgets for internal equity. Uh, there's also one more which says, are we moving towards variable plus base pay from base pay plus variable pay? Um, yes, one could almost argue for that if we assume that skills based pay is going to be the most important component of pay, then you can argue that variable pay will be predominant, but it'll take a different shape from the performance based variable pay that we talk about today.
So I would say there are a lot of moving parts, and you don't have a straight cookie cutter kind of an answer to some of these questions, because skills are evolving, jobs are evolving, requirements are evolving. You're talking about digitization, and there's a lot of disruption around us, honestly, right? So it's not that you say the next couple of years this is how it is going to be, but surely we have to look at multiple dimensions before we are able to come up with something which is closely aligned to the needs of the organization as of now and will evolve as we move along, is what I would say.
okay,
I know there's
so
a question on internal equity from the Q&A section, but not sure we have time, Krupa. think we're probably out of time right now.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, it's already 6, and our next session is going to be starting now. But I would like to thank you both for being with us today. Thank you, Shanti ma'am. Thank you, Preeti ma'am, for taking out time and being with us today. It was a really great session for all of us, and the audience also seemed quite engaging, and it was a great session overall. So, thank you very much. And I would request the audience to join the next session as it's already 6:01. So, the next session has started. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks you. Bye
Bye.
bye.